Hello and welcome to Energy Unplugged by Aurora. This podcast features various experts from Aurora having in-depth conversations with key industry leaders, policymakers and academics from all over the world. It explores the hottest topics across the energy market and gives a unique perspective on major energy issues.
Welcome to Energy Unplugged. I am Oliver Kerr, head of Aurora's US business, and hosting with me today is Felix Chow-Kambitsch, who heads up Aurora's CAISO and Western US advisory practice. And today we are very excited to be joined by Julian Nebreda. Julian is the CEO of Fluence Energy, before which he had a distinguished career at AES Corporation, ultimately serving as president of the South America Strategic Business Unit. That's in addition to multiple board positions and altogether over 20 years of experience in the energy sector. Julian, we're absolutely delighted you can join us. Welcome to Energy Unplugged.
Thank you for the invite. Really looking forward for our conversation. Fun, and first time I've been called, I have a distinguished career. So it's a first day for everything. So
there are a few topics we want to focus on today, but before we get into the detail, I wanted just to start with the big picture. So I think you took on the role of CEO at Fluence at a really interesting time last year. So right in the middle of a big supply chain crunch, and skyrocketing lithium prices, at the same time as huge demand for battery storage in both the energy and transport sectors. So we'll come on to some of those issues in a minute. But first, I wanted to take a step back and just ask how you see the outlook for battery storage globally going forward at a high level.
2021 and 22 were very peculiar years for this industry. They had, 10 years of prices coming down, logistical prices very stable, things very, 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 very stable. And we had, we went public, major demand for our product. And, suddenly we had all this volatility, prices skyrocketing, lithium prices going up through the roof, battery prices, difficulty getting things out of China or getting things moving things around. And the company wasn't ready for it. And our industry wasn't ready. When you look generally at most of our competitors, we were all in the same space. So I came in, the diagnosis that we did with the new management team was, hey, he was clearly, there's a huge tailwinds here. Huge, the technology is moving forward. Our customers want it. The supply chain works. It's a strong supply chain. Hey, what happened? We had a weak, risk management system. Let's put it this. So we actually put in place a new risk management system and try to raise our offering, from supply chain, some of the commodity drivers. And I think it has worked very, very well. This is not something that, as I said, that we were not the only ones that did it. Most of the industry did it at the time. And I think this has put the technology at a point where it can now actually, continue using the tremendous tailwinds it has, tremendous tailwinds. Clearly, it's a technology that has a very broad, it's very versatile, that it can do a lot. We can talk about it. But right now, it's playing the game of accelerating the integration of renewables. And with the major acceleration of the renewables, I think this technology has a, protagonist role to play at this stage. But, I think that the role of this technology is much more than renewable integration, and there's a lot more to do. But today, that's what we're doing. That's what we're dedicating most of the time. And that's what I think is giving us a tailwind to accelerating the industry.
So when you look at the hottest markets now for battery storage globally, is there anything that they have in common? Is it just rising renewables, or is it something else that they have in common?
Generally, I will say it's a commitment to renewables and fast integration of renewables and reducing the cost. So when you see which are the biggest markets today, the UK, the US by far, the UK, Chile, Australia. These are markets that have committed to renewables and are really working hard. But, that's not the only thing we do. We also work very, very hard in markets where there is a real need to strengthen the grid. The Philippines is a case. Taiwan is a case. These are small markets, island markets that have, challenges of having strong grids. And, battery storage plays a fundamental role in that. So if you look, in fact, we can tell today where you see clearly the bigger markets, the ones that are integrated in renewables. Germany is the other one. I didn't, the US, Germany, the UK, Australia, India starting now. And then the other smaller markets where we play a role of really helping the grid, get better, reduce the cost of having a very, very strong grid.
I mean, even in a market like the US that is mature, I think you still see the challenges. I think that's one of the fears with the IRA, building out a lot of renewables, but how able is the grid to cope with that? And it'll be interesting to see what role battery storage could play in that context.
We see that as the ultimate role of batteries. And what we're doing now, but clearly, the role of batteries will expand as the cost comes down and the business cases will expand. But where do we see where do we believe there's a sweet spot today? So we do a lot of, what we call, renewable integration, frequency control, voltage, peaking capacity, helping the solar hours extend beyond the peak hours. So it seems so easy. But we're now doing transmission support. We have 2 projects in Europe, one in Lithuania, one very big one that we announced fairly recent, 6 months ago in Germany, where we're using batteries to increase the utilization factor of transmission systems. So essentially what you do is that, as you know, transmission systems are usually operated with an idle line, or an idle circuit to ensure that you can manage demand or volumes in case there's any disruption and you don't create any sort of problem. What you do is you put batteries, and this sounds simpler than it's a lot more complicated, but you put batteries on each side of the transmission line. In this case, the batteries play the role of the idle circuit that you have to support any issues with the reliability of the transmission line. And that way, by using the batteries to provide that security, the transmission operators can use the transmission infrastructure completely, increasing the amount of energy they can transfer through the line, and improve and releasing the need, not only increasing the utilization factor of the line, increasing the economic factor of the line, because now you can transmit, a lot more energy, and that's better. And you can, at the same time, delay the investments if that's the case. That's kind of the next frontier. And the one afterwards, I think, will be the distribution sector. They're going down into, low voltage, and then to the more distributed grid, where also batteries can play a role at ensuring that, and this is just starting, at ensuring that you could more efficiently provide a more distributed network, the same level of services that, distribution customers or utility customers are accustomed to. So as I said, there is a long way for this technology to be used in the, we're now supporting renewables, but I see it, years and years to come of more development of customer business usages and products that we will be able to deliver to it.
That's a really interesting point around the evolution of battery business models over time. I suppose the way I see it is right now, a lot of batteries are being built in different markets, primarily to serve ancillary services. As those markets start to saturate, you see a move into energy arbitrage. And as you mentioned, there's a sort of next frontier of batteries as transmission assets. To get to that next frontier, to what extent do you think business ownership models need to change? Are IPPs still going to be the primary owners of batteries in the future, or do you see batteries as grid assets where, the grid operators are putting them in the rate base and operating them that way?
I think that I think that in order to work in the transmission sector, they will have to be owned by the transmission asset owners, so more than the IPP operators. There's a regulatory challenge with batteries as transmission support, is that, batteries can be dispatched. And the general rule in most of the regulations, transmission operators are not allowed to dispatch anything, as a way, because you don't want them to give preference over one generation, one unit of generation to another. So that's today, I would say, the regulatory challenge that we need to go, we need to kind of figure it out. Clearly what we want to have the transmission operators not to be making the decisions who should dispatch. That should be an economic decision. But at the same time, dispatching the batteries in a way, ensures the security. So that's a tension we have seen in Germany, the tension we have seen in Europe. That's the thing we need to resolve in the US. But generally, in my view, that these assets, at the end of the day, in order to work better, they will have to work as regulatory assets included in the transmission or the distribution operator asset base.
And Julian, you described these different applications of batteries going from frequency control to renewable integration and then supporting the transmission. Are these the same batteries in terms of duration and response time, or do you think the batteries need to evolve as well?
What we see today is that most of the business cases that I'm talking about do not require more than 4 hours. Mm-hmm. So the current technology you have with the lithium-ion batteries work very well. Can longer battery storage or products that can longer, say solid state, which will be able to maybe with in less density to provide longer duration. It might change the business case, but today it's very difficult to see a need for 10-hour batteries. Batteries will never do long-term storage. But batteries are not tanks. I always like to say this to people when they call, well, but can you move, a generation from the winter to the summer? No, batteries will never be able to. Will never. That's something that we should not ask batteries to. But batteries are not going to play the role of tanks. Tanks will continue. There will be a need for tanks, whether you put there gasoline or hydrogen or any sort of fuel that is either, carbon-based fuel or non-carbon-based fuel. That's a different decision. But tanks will continue to play a role in the electricity sector. That's not what we're trying to resolve. We're trying to resolve short-term issues. And, tanks are not good at short-term storage. We are not good at long-term storage. So, maybe we can spend 2, 6, and 8 hours, but once you go beyond that, there are better infrastructure solutions than batteries, I think.
Super interesting, especially in the context of California, where we're really pushing the envelope on longer duration storage and what it can do to balance renewable intermittency for longer durations, in the context of not wanting to build new gas.
Yeah. But you can do tanks, you can do hydrogen. Hydrogen is very, very efficient or not very efficient, can efficiently, save, can be a reservoir of clean energy for longer periods of time. Batteries will never be able to do that, No, maybe 20, maybe somebody that will come back to haunt me. But I don't think that in the battery technology roadmap we see batteries are going to allow us to, maybe offer a 12-hour solution, a 20-hour, but never enough that they will cover, months, or weeks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'd like to pick up on a different point. You mentioned earlier at the beginning of our conversation about how we're in a period where costs are increasing with supply chain issues and all that. What do you think about how does that interact with the Inflation Reduction Act? I mean, the fact that right now there's a lot more new tax credits coming out of the US, and really the consensus view is that the IRA would likely speed up battery deployment. How does that interact with all those patterns you're talking about in terms of costs coming up?
It will clearly increase demand, no doubt. But let me tell you where we are today. Lithium carbonate prices, which is the main commodity that supports battery, has been coming down in prices from November to today. Even today, I was especially for this, I was checking the price, was trading continuous, probably 40% down in renminbi. In dollars, it's a different number. But we have seen major investments in supply, major investments in mining, major investments. So, I do agree that we will continue to see some volatility because there's a lot, and it will be impossible to, meet market demand and offering at the same time. But I do believe there's no reason to believe that this is a technology that will continue to come down in prices over time. You know, we might see other opportunities where you see, even with Inflation Reduction Act, we see major demand pools, but those can easily be recovered by new offerings, new investments, and so lithium-ion prices have come down. They're still significantly higher than what they were before in the 2019, early 2020. It appears from what you hear is that the people that do the mining and the processing for this are still making significant margins on this. So that continues to attract more investments. But clearly you can see that what appears to be a combination of lower demand in China and marginal offerings, significantly help the prices come down, not to the points before the 2019, but still, shows that is a market that where there are, not significant barriers to entry. So I'm very, very confident that this technology will continue reducing in price. That they will continue evolving, and that we will see this, that's the investments we're making, that this is a technology that's just starting in its useful life. Like computer chips, when you had, earlier, transistors, years ago, they worked for radios, and now they have become more and more complex, and the price continue to come. I don't know if we're going to get into some sort of Moore's law. I'm not proposing that. I think that this industry has that infrastructure, that technology base, but that we will see continuous improvements. I do believe that we'll continue to see improvements in pricing and competitiveness.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we're seeing a lot more announcements in manufacturing capability of battery cells coming up in the U.S. In conjunction with the IRA. To what extent is the sort of domestic content adders of the IRA really changing the location of the supply chains, and what would that mean for the battery supply chain overall?
I see, first from a regulatory point of view, I see there is in the US and in Europe, a commitment to let's start with the more macro, a commitment to, or a policy view of deindustrializing the economy, bringing back industrial processes into the U.S. Not only, this not only being a fully service economy, but bringing back some industrialization processes. So that, and I think energy and battery storage as part of energy will play a significant role in bringing that industrial processes back to the U.S. And I tell you my own view. I think that it makes sense. There's no reason to believe the U.S. cannot be competitive. It's close to significant mines of silicon, of lithium. It has very low cost of energy. Probably of the developed countries is one of the countries with the lowest cost of energy. So it's a country abundant in energy that can, as you know, the processing of lithium is an energy-intensive process. It is a fairly cleaner in terms of the energy matrix at some of these other countries. So, and it has an industrial base and educated people. So I believe that this is going to happen, and that that we will see a major, redistribution of where batteries are built, where these industrial processes are occurring, and the U.S. will take a significant role in that. Also, Europe has also, Europe is a lot more complex because it's as a union, it's not as unionized, use that word, as the U.S. But so each market has its own different rules, and industrial policy is a lot more difficult to implement in Europe than it is in the U.S. But I think that Europe will also bring in more. And then there are countries like India. And as the demand is picking up at the speed, it doesn't mean that we will have, because some people ask me, well, but this major shift in industrial processes is very, very costly. And it might mean that you have, a idle capital, a factory built somewhere that now has nothing to serve. But the reality is that with the technology and the demand growing so fast, I don't see, any major factory anywhere going idle. Just that the new capacity, the new demand will be served from these different markets as they move along.
Yeah, and I see what you mean in a sense. The demand is ramping up so quickly. You can almost add production capacity for batteries anywhere in the world, and there will be a market for it.
Exactly.
And this interesting shift, your point about Europe and America really reindustrializing and really changing that dynamic about where are things produced.
And it will take time. Clearly, the U.S. will have the challenge of its, I won't say cumbersome, that's not a word, but, a more strict approval process for projects, and so that will make it a little more complicated also in Europe, that probably in some other countries where the processes to get the permits and licenses and stuff work out faster. But, the U.S. was able to build a whole industry of shale gas in 15 years, that converted the U.S. into the biggest producer of gas and oil in the world, oil and probably gas also, gas is probably the second. So I do not, I do not foresee why if we could do it with shale gas, we could not do it with industrial processes.
So we've been talking about some of the issues in the battery sector at large. I'm curious what all this means for the Fluence business model specifically and how you're adapting to some of these challenges. So I think you mentioned when that you first took the helm of the business, risk management was a top priority. I'm curious how the broader structure of the business helps manage risk or not. I mean, so Fluence is involved across almost all the value chain, equipment, software, servicing, asset management. To what extent has that been an advantage or perhaps even a disadvantage at dealing with some things like the supply chain bottlenecks?
One of the things that is evident to me is that scale is very important for risk management. No, that let's say we needed to have several battery suppliers, several technology partners, and only with scale you can do that in a way that you do not lose competitiveness. So I think scale has been our biggest advantage in this, and will continue. And I personally believe that this company is a fraction of what it needs to be. That we still needs to grow to be able to do this. The scale to really create the value for our customers still needs a lot of work to. We need a lot to. Then the other, so that's very. Then the other challenge of this also is that you need to identify very clearly where you create value. And we set for ourselves, for us, as a company, our view is that we're not a battery distribution business. We are a company that resolves problems for our customers. We provide solutions using battery technology. We're good at using battery technology. We have a good supply chain. We understand how that technology works, and we use that technology to address customer problems. So the customers is what guides how we guide our strategic planning internally. And where do we see? So we believe the customers, as we talk to customers, let's say the easiest one, safety, fundamental for our customers. So we spend a lot of time in safety. Bankability, the ability to find, and this will sound strange because these are not, clearly safety it is. But the other one is bankability. You need to finance this product. So, we need to work very hard to ensure that we can offer something that is easily bankable. Performance that we talked. So, not only these very quick response batteries, but, batteries that have high availability, that do what they tell you in a reliable way. So that's very, very important. The other thing that our customers ask, I do not want to think about your supply chain. I do not care what do you use? Just give me what I have. You resolve that problem. So having a strong supply chain where we commoditize and de-risk the supply chain for our customers. And that's what we bring to our customers. No? And I think that when we looked at that, we said, well, clearly, digital integration is fundamental. So we are in a road to have solutions that where all the code will be controlled by us. It doesn't matter where the parts come from, but all the code will be controlled by us, because that's very, very important. So, clearly safety. These things, will have are not only very, very safe, but in the case there is a problem, all problems are contained. So, that's something, a guiding principle. We do not want our customers or us to be in any way limited by any of our suppliers. So we're commoditizing our suppliers to the extent possible to ensure that what we offer our customers, and if a supplier changes their mind or decides to drop or decides to be unreasonable, it doesn't really affect our business. And that's kind of where we're thinking about this.
Do you think this look, Tesla, Elon Musk is building a giant lithium refinery down the road from here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Do you think that sort of vertical integration in supply chains will become more common going forward?
Yeah, for the car industry, maybe. For us, I don't see it. The car industry, their product development cycles are a lot longer. So for them, their technology definitions are, once they build a car with certain solutions, I cannot marry with that, for a longer period of time. Our technology is a lot more nimble. We can do more things, we can change more. And as I said, I think we can commoditize our suppliers. So I don't think that for us, we need to resist to the point where we own or have an interest in mining. But so it's a different approach. Of how you understand your business. We looked at our business, at the customer's side. Some of our people looked at the business from their supply side. And no one's wrong or right, but just different approaches.
And talking about these different approaches, another area where we're seeing different approaches in terms of how integrated the business is in terms of servicing the battery industry is in the battery optimization space. So here in the US, we're seeing a number of IPPs optimizing their batteries in-house. So, the broad reaches, the Black Mountains, whereas in some other markets, I think in the UK in particular, there are a lot of third-party optimizers. So that's outsourced. Yeah. So how do you think this will play out in terms of like how easy it is to scale in your own in-house optimization? And, over time, will there be a consensus as to whether this should be done in-house or done outsourced?
I think that, it will depend market by market, but generally, I think that this scale at the end will impose itself, and having these tools in-house, unless you're a huge company, will probably, will not be the right decision down, long term, So that's generally our view. We are, as we have our optimization tools. We believe that we offer a price point and a cost points and at a quality point that makes it very, very difficult for a self-integrator or a self-optimizer to do it. But not maybe you can win. If you see this as a 100-meter race, maybe some of the self-integration companies can win the 100. I don't know if they can win the marathon, which is at the end what this is. Because one of the things that you need to think especially when I think about this technology, if you go to, as I worked in AES for many years, and I visited many oil plants, all around my life. And when you go to an old plant, an old thermal plant, the equipment is doing what they were supposed to do the day you commission it. And nothing has changed, Maybe the operating system changed, the system that operated the plant, the SCADA, but the boiler is doing what it's supposed to do, the generators doing, the rotors doing, everything's working as it was supposed to. That's not going to happen with our technology. These technologies are going to do more and more with digital innovation on top. And they're going to be a source of value over the 20 years life they have that will evolve. And I do think that it's going to be very, very difficult for self-integrators who are not self-integrated, self-optimizers to really be able to do this, efficiently in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
However, as you know, I always said this because I like to make this caveat. I love this industry because it's a competitive industry. I love competition. I think competition is what drives social value. I come from a country that unfortunately is under a communist rule, and where they view that competition, the market does not exist and shouldn't be not a good driver of value creation. And I have seen, personally, what lack of competition, lack of market destroys social value, and how competition and market create social value. So, I welcome the competition. And we're trying to do our best to ensure that we deliver that long-term value to our customers, and, keeping an eye on what all the self-optimizers are doing to ensure that none of them get ahead of us, to the extent they can. But clearly I wish them well. I'm willing to sell them my battery my solution so they can optimize it with their own equipment.
Yeah, it's a very, very complex second-by-second optimization across many revenue streams, right? So
and it's going to get more and more complex, Felix. I think that this is something that sometimes, for me, has been, as I come from the traditional world, where you see a solar panel, and the solar panel is going to do the same thing on a wind farm. It's going to do the same thing on a transformer. This technology is just starting to do what it's going to do. And just by software and digital solutions, you will allow it to expand what they do fairly easy. So you cannot think of, when you get into here, when you looked at this, hey, take a picture of it today. Oh, this is, this is going to be years and years of opportunities, and some of our competitors. I don't want this to be blowing our horns. A lot of our competitors do the same thing. Hey, we are with you for these 20 years. We'll service you. We'll provide you digital solutions. We'll ensure that as you look at these assets, you'll make money out of it and create value with it. And we can do it because we know where the batteries are coming from, how the modules code was written, how everything works.
And with that really sort of close relationship you're talking about with your customers when you're optimizing their batteries, to what extent do you see the battery optimizing, sort of the third party sharing in some of the risk as well? So, for instance, we're seeing some parties offering revenue guarantees or some sort of profit share model, and therefore they're taking on some of the risk as well as the reward, obviously. Where do you see this coming out?
We're doing that also. Sometimes for our customers, in order to believe what we are telling them, or put it differently, the additional value we bring to the table, sometimes for the customer, it's very difficult to compensate for it because, they need a leap of faith there. So, we provided a leap of faith. Okay, up to this point, is this amount. If I can do better, I'll shave 20, 10, some amount of it. And it has worked. I know that some of my competitors do some things that are similar. I think you'll see more and more of that coming. Those type of, profit sharing or revenue sharing or upside sharing or floor setting, it kind of helps customers take that leap of faith. And you'll see more and more financial players getting here. The financial players will probably bring, depth of, solution development or product development that will help resolve some of the issues that we're trying to resolve with this revenue sharing and stuff.
And it's definitely something we're seeing here in Texas, having the question that developers or IPBs are asking is, to what extent do they have to give up value in exchange for that?
That's right. Or in California, where you actually make money just, the summer month, you might make money on the other side, but that's the one, So, hey, you have to really believe these things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Great. That feels like a good place to wrap up the discussion. And I'll end with a question we always love to ask, which is there anyone that you're reading or listening to in the energy space that you think is especially thought-provoking or that you'd like to recommend to the listeners?
I read so much on energy during my day job that I don't So I've been reading now lately what I'm telling you, which is connected, but geopolitics a lot. I think that this is a science that somehow after the Berlin Wall fell down and the Cold War ended, I kind of forgot about it, and now it's coming back, So I mean, I'm sure the geopoliticians will hate that I'm saying that it's coming back and say they never left. Yeah, clearly never left, but I kind of lost prominence. So I've been reading a lot about it, and I think this clearly the deindustrialization, how to think where trade routes are going to happen, how ensure that you're going to have, in my case, when I look, our business will have to manage a complex, trade or a complex supply chain. That understanding geopolitics will be very, very important for anybody in any sector of life or in the energy sector.
Certainly, and we've definitely seen that lately in the energy sector. Well, thank you so much, Julian, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you very much, and really great. I enjoy the conversation, and let's hope we can get together for maybe a beer and talk about energy.
That was Oliver Kerr, head of Aurora's US business, and Felix Chow-Kambitsch, who heads up Aurora's CAISO and Western US advisory practice, talking to Julian Nebreda, CEO of Fluence Energy. Do keep an eye on our podcast feed for more in-depth conversations with senior members of the energy industry. The best way to do this is to subscribe on whatever platform you use. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.